Question 1. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of cultural bias in certain question formats and a high likelihood of administrative inconsistencies in exam proctoring across different testing centers for the American University of Acapulco entrance exam. Which of the following represents the most prudent and ethically sound approach to address these identified risks? Option A. Conduct a thorough review of all exam questions for potential cultural bias. Revise problematic items and implement standardized training and monitoring protocols for all exam proctors to ensure consistent administration. Option B. Acknowledge the risks, but decide that the current exam structure is generally effective and focus resources on other areas of the admissions process. Option C. Immediately increase the overall difficulty of the exam to compensate for any potential biases and implement a strict, unappealable pass/fail system for all applicants. Option D. Issue a general statement to applicants acknowledging potential inconsistencies and advising them to be extra vigilant during the exam, without implementing specific corrective actions. Correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough review of all exam questions for potential cultural bias, revise problematic items, and implement standardized training and monitoring protocols for all exam proctors to ensure consistent administration. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to provide a fair and supportive environment for all students. The entrance exam is a critical gatekeeper, and ensuring its fairness and validity is paramount. The risk matrix, in this context, highlights potential vulnerabilities in the examination process that could compromise its integrity or lead to inequitable outcomes. Careful judgment is required to identify and address these risks without unduly penalizing legitimate applicants or creating an overly burdensome process. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the examination process, focusing on identifying and mitigating potential biases or vulnerabilities that could affect the fairness of the assessment. This includes analyzing the exam content for cultural or linguistic bias, ensuring clear and consistent administration procedures, and establishing a transparent appeals process. This approach aligns with the principles of fairness and equity expected in any educational institution's admissions process, as well as the implicit regulatory expectation that entrance examinations are designed and administered to be objective and valid measures of a candidate's suitability. While specific regulations for the American University of Acapulco entrance exam are not provided, general principles of educational assessment and institutional responsibility would mandate such a thorough and unbiased review. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the identified risks without further investigation, assuming the current process is inherently fair. This fails to acknowledge the potential for systemic issues or unintended consequences that can arise in any assessment. Ethically, it neglects the responsibility to ensure a level playing field for all applicants. Another incorrect approach would be to implement overly restrictive measures that significantly disadvantage all students, such as drastically increasing the difficulty of the exam or imposing arbitrary limitations without clear justification. This would be procedurally unfair and could violate the spirit of providing an accessible education. A third incorrect approach would be to focus solely on punitive measures for perceived irregularities without first establishing clear, objective criteria and a fair process for addressing them. This could lead to arbitrary decisions and damage the university's reputation for fairness. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the nature and potential impact of the identified risks. This involves gathering data, consulting with relevant stakeholders, e.g., faculty, admissions staff, student representatives, and considering best practices in educational assessment. A structured decision-making process would involve 1. Risk identification and assessment, clearly defining the risks presented in the matrix. 2. Impact analysis, evaluating the potential consequences of each risk on fairness, validity, and institutional reputation. 3. Mitigation strategy development, brainstorming and selecting appropriate measures to address the identified risks. 4. Implementation and monitoring, putting the chosen strategies into practice and continuously evaluating their effectiveness. 5. Review and adjustment, regularly reviewing the process and making necessary adjustments based on feedback and outcomes. Question 2. The evaluation methodology shows that the American University of Acapulco entrance exam is designed to assess a candidate's critical thinking and adherence to academic standards. During the examination, a candidate encounters a question that appears to have a typographical error, rendering its meaning unclear. The candidate is unsure whether to interpret the question in one of two possible ways, neither of which is definitively correct based on the wording. Which of the following actions best demonstrates adherence to the principles of academic integrity and the examination's regulatory framework? Option A. Make an educated guess based on the most likely intended meaning and proceed with answering. Option B. Skip the question and move on to the next one, hoping to revisit it later if time permits. Option C. Discreetly ask a fellow candidate for their interpretation of the question. Option D. Raise a hand and politely request clarification from the examination proctor regarding the question's wording. Correct answer is C. Discreetly ask a fellow candidate for their interpretation of the question. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the American University of Acapulco's specific entrance examinations regulatory framework and its implications for academic integrity. The challenge lies in discerning the most appropriate response when faced with a situation that could be interpreted in multiple ways, demanding a nuanced application of the exam's guiding principles. Careful judgment is required to align one's actions with the university's stated values and examination rules. The correct approach involves proactively seeking clarification from the examination proctor regarding the perceived ambiguity in the question. This represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the potential for misunderstanding before proceeding, thereby upholding the integrity of the examination process. This aligns with the implicit regulatory requirement of all candidates to engage with the examination in good faith and to ensure their responses are based on a clear comprehension of the questions posed. Ethically, it demonstrates honesty and a commitment to fair play, avoiding any potential for an unfair advantage or misrepresentation of knowledge. An incorrect approach would be to make an assumption about the question's intent and proceed with an answer based on that assumption. This is professionally unacceptable because it bypasses the opportunity for clarification, potentially leading to an answer that is factually incorrect or misinterprets the question's core requirement. This could be seen as a failure to adhere to the spirit of the examination, which is to assess genuine understanding. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the ambiguity and simply move on to the next question without attempting to answer the problematic one. This is professionally unacceptable as it represents a failure to engage with the assessment material and could be interpreted as an unwillingness to tackle challenges or a lack of preparedness. It also fails to address the potential for a flawed examination question, which the university would ideally want to identify and rectify. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a systematic approach. First, identify any ambiguity or potential misinterpretation in the question. Second, consider the most direct and ethical way to resolve this ambiguity within the examination's established rules. Third, if permitted by the examination guidelines, seek clarification from the designated authority, in this case, the proctor. If clarification is not possible or permitted, then carefully consider the most probable intended meaning, acknowledging the inherent risk of misinterpretation. The overarching principle is to act with integrity and to strive for an accurate and honest representation of one's knowledge. Question 3. Governance review demonstrates that the admissions committee at the American University of Acapulco has received a highly influential recommendation for a prospective student from a prominent figure in the local community. While the candidate's academic record is solid, it does not unequivocally meet the highest tier of admission standards. The committee is under subtle pressure to ensure this candidate's admission to maintain positive relations with the influential figure. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Expedite the admission process for this candidate, giving significant weight to the recommendation to ensure a favorable outcome and maintain good standing with the influential figure. Option B. Decline the candidate's application outright due to the potential for perceived bias without a full review of their qualifications to avoid any appearance of impropriety. Option C. Conduct a thorough and objective review of the candidate's application against all established admission criteria, ensuring the decision is based solely on merit and suitability for the program, regardless of the external recommendation's influence. Option D. Inform the influential figure that the candidate's application will be reviewed, but that the recommendation will not be a primary factor in the decision-making process, and proceed with a standard, albeit potentially less rigorous, review. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough and objective review of the candidate's application against all established admission criteria, ensuring the decision is based solely on merit and suitability for the program, regardless of the external recommendation's influence. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and responding to external pressures that could compromise institutional standards. The university's commitment to a fair and transparent admissions process is paramount, and any deviation from established protocols requires careful consideration of the potential repercussions. The pressure to admit a specific candidate, even with a strong recommendation, necessitates a rigorous evaluation that adheres strictly to the American University of Acapulco's admission policies and ethical guidelines. The correct approach involves a thorough, objective review of the candidate's application against the established admission criteria, independent of the external recommendation. This ensures that the decision is based solely on merit and suitability for the program, upholding the university's commitment to fairness and equal opportunity for all applicants. This aligns with the ethical principles of impartiality and transparency expected of academic institutions, preventing undue influence and maintaining the credibility of the admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to grant preferential treatment based solely on the recommendation, bypassing the standard evaluation process. This would violate the principle of equal treatment for all applicants and could be seen as a breach of academic integrity, potentially leading to accusations of favoritism or corruption. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the recommendation entirely without proper consideration, which could be perceived as unprofessional and disrespectful of the recommending party, potentially damaging institutional relationships without a valid justification. Finally, attempting to manipulate the evaluation criteria to fit the candidate would be a severe ethical and regulatory violation, undermining the entire admissions framework and the university's reputation. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established policies and ethical codes. This involves 1. Acknowledging the external input but not allowing it to dictate the outcome. 2. Conducting a comprehensive and objective assessment of the candidate based on predefined criteria. 3. Documenting the entire evaluation process, including the rationale for the final decision. 4. Consulting with relevant committees or superiors if there is ambiguity or significant pressure. 5. Ensuring that the final decision is defensible and aligns with the university's mission and values. Question 4. The performance metrics show a statistically significant difference in the average final grades between the Department of Humanities and the Department of Sciences over the past 3 academic years. The university's academic senate has mandated a review of such disparities to ensure equitable educational standards. Which of the following represents the most appropriate initial step for the Dean of Academic Affairs? Option A. Request a comprehensive audit of all faculty members in the Department of Humanities to assess their teaching effectiveness and grading practices. Option B. Immediately propose a revised grading rubric for all courses within the Department of Humanities, based on the assumption that their grading standards are less rigorous. Option C. Convene a meeting with the department chairs of both Humanities and Sciences to collaboratively review the data, discuss potential contributing factors, and explore evidence-based strategies for improvement, adhering to the university's academic review policy. Option D. Issue a directive to the Department of Sciences to share their curriculum and teaching methodologies with the Department of Humanities, without prior consultation with either department. Correct answer is C. Convene a meeting with the department chairs of both Humanities and Sciences to collaboratively review the data, discuss potential contributing factors, and explore evidence-based strategies for improvement, adhering to the university's academic review policy. Explanation. The performance metrics show a significant disparity in student outcomes between 2 academic departments at the American University of Acapulco. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an administrator to interpret data, identify potential systemic issues, and propose solutions that are both effective and ethically sound, all within the university's established governance and academic integrity frameworks. The pressure to demonstrate improvement while respecting departmental autonomy and faculty input necessitates careful judgment. The correct approach involves a comprehensive, data-driven investigation that prioritizes fairness and due process. This means initiating a dialogue with the underperforming department to understand the root causes of the disparity, which could range from curriculum design to faculty support or student engagement strategies. The university's internal policies on academic assessment and quality assurance would guide this process, ensuring that any interventions are evidence-based and aligned with the institution's mission. Ethical considerations demand that the investigation be objective, transparent, and focused on student success, avoiding any form of punitive action without thorough investigation and opportunity for the department to respond. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement sweeping, top-down changes without consulting the affected department. This disregards the principle of collegiality and the expertise of faculty members within their respective fields. Such an action could violate university bylaws concerning departmental governance and faculty consultation, potentially leading to morale issues and resistance. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the performance metrics as statistical anomalies without further investigation. This fails to uphold the university's commitment to academic excellence and student welfare, potentially allowing systemic problems to persist and negatively impact future student cohorts. A third incorrect approach would be to focus solely on punitive measures against faculty in the underperforming department, without exploring broader contextual factors or offering support. This is ethically questionable and likely to be ineffective, as it does not address the underlying causes of the performance gap. Professionals should approach such situations by first establishing a clear understanding of the university's internal policies and procedures for academic review and quality assurance. This should be followed by a systematic data analysis to identify trends and potential contributing factors. Open communication and collaboration with the affected departments are crucial. The decision-making process should be guided by principles of fairness, evidence, and a commitment to continuous improvement in student learning outcomes, always within the established regulatory and ethical boundaries of the American University of Acapulco. Question 5. Risk assessment procedures indicate a student in their final semester at the American University of Acapulco has shown a significant and uncharacteristic decline in academic performance across multiple courses, raising concerns about potential academic dishonesty or severe personal difficulties impacting their studies. What is the most appropriate initial course of action for the academic advisor? Option A. Advise the student that their academic performance is their sole responsibility and that the university cannot intervene in personal matters affecting their studies. Option B. Immediately refer the student to the Academic Integrity Committee for investigation into potential plagiarism or cheating. Option C. Schedule a private meeting with the student to discuss their academic performance, inquire about any challenges they may be facing, and review university resources available for academic support and well-being. Option D. Grant the student automatic extensions on all upcoming assignments and offer a review of their current grades to identify areas for potential adjustment. The correct answer is C. Schedule a private meeting with the student to discuss their academic performance, inquire about any challenges they may be facing, and review university resources available for academic support and well-being. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to support students facing personal difficulties. The professional challenge lies in determining the appropriate level of intervention and support without compromising the established academic standards or unfairly penalizing a student. It requires careful judgment to distinguish between legitimate academic struggles and potential academic misconduct, while also considering the student's well-being. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured, multi-stage process that prioritizes fairness and adherence to established university policies. This begins with a direct, private conversation with the student to understand the circumstances behind their academic performance. This aligns with the university's ethical obligation to provide a supportive environment and to investigate academic concerns thoroughly and impartially. If the conversation reveals extenuating circumstances, the university can then explore appropriate academic accommodations or support services as outlined in its student handbook and academic regulations. If academic misconduct is suspected, The process would then escalate to the formal academic integrity procedures, ensuring due process for the student. This approach upholds both academic standards and student welfare, guided by the university's internal regulations and ethical principles of fairness and due process. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that immediately assumes academic misconduct and initiates disciplinary proceedings without first attempting to understand the student's situation, fails to uphold the principle of due process, and can be perceived as punitive rather than supportive. This bypasses the crucial initial step of gathering information and understanding context, potentially leading to an unfair outcome. An approach that solely focuses on offering immediate academic leniency, such as automatic extensions or grade adjustments, without a proper assessment of the underlying reasons for poor performance, risks undermining academic standards and could be seen as setting a precedent that devalues academic effort. It also fails to address potential underlying issues that might require more targeted support. An approach that ignores the student's academic performance altogether, assuming personal issues are solely the student's responsibility and outside the university's purview, neglects the university's ethical responsibility to provide a supportive educational environment and to address academic concerns that may impact a student's success and the integrity of the academic program. Professional reasoning. Professionals in university settings should adopt a decision-making framework that emphasizes a systematic and empathetic approach. This involves 1. Information gathering, actively seeking to understand the situation from all relevant perspectives. 2. Policy adherence, consulting and applying established university policies and procedures consistently. 3. Fairness and due process, ensuring that all actions taken are fair, impartial, and provide the individual with an opportunity to be heard. 4. Support and intervention, identifying and offering appropriate support mechanisms when needed while maintaining academic integrity. 5. Escalation, following defined protocols for escalating issues when necessary, such as formal academic integrity investigations. Question 6. The performance metrics show a substantial increase in applications for the upcoming academic year at the American University of Acapulco, particularly for its competitive international programs. The admissions committee is tasked with selecting the most suitable candidates. Which of the following approaches best reflects a commitment to fair and effective admissions practices, considering the university's mission and the need for a robust applicant pool? Option A. Implementing a multifaceted review process that evaluates academic transcripts, standardized test scores, personal statements, letters of recommendation, and extracurricular activities for each applicant, ensuring a comprehensive understanding of their potential and fit with the university's programs. Option B. Focusing primarily on applicants who achieve the highest scores on a single, university-administered entrance examination, while giving less weight to other application components. Option C. Adjusting admission criteria to favor applicants who demonstrate the greatest financial capacity to enroll, thereby ensuring a strong revenue stream for the university. Option D. Prioritizing applicants from a select group of international schools that have historically sent a high number of students to the university, assuming these students are pre-qualified. The correct answer is A. Implementing a multifaceted review process that evaluates academic transcripts, standardized test scores, personal statements, letters of recommendation, and extracurricular activities for each applicant, ensuring a comprehensive understanding of their potential and fit with the university's programs. Explanation. The performance metrics show a significant increase in student applications to the American University of Acapulco's international programs. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the admissions team to balance the university's desire for growth and increased enrollment with the imperative to maintain academic standards and ensure a fair and transparent admissions process. The challenge lies in identifying qualified candidates who will succeed at the university and contribute positively to its academic community, while also adhering to the university's stated admission policies and any relevant Mexican educational regulations governing university admissions. The correct approach involves a holistic review of each applicant's profile, considering academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, personal essays, and letters of recommendation within the context of the applicant's educational background and opportunities. This approach aligns with best practices in university admissions by seeking to understand the applicant as a whole person, not just a set of scores. It also implicitly supports the university's mission to attract diverse and capable students. While specific Mexican regulations for university entrance exams are not detailed here, the principle of fair and equitable assessment is universally recognized in higher education and would be expected to be upheld by the American University of Acapulco. An approach that solely prioritizes applicants from specific geographic regions or those who have participated in particular preparatory programs, without a thorough individual assessment, would be ethically problematic. This could lead to accusations of bias or favoritism, undermining the integrity of the admissions process. Furthermore, if such prioritization deviates from the university's published admission criteria or any established Mexican educational guidelines for admissions, it would constitute a regulatory failure. Another incorrect approach would be to rely exclusively on standardized test scores, ignoring other crucial aspects of an applicant's potential. This overlooks the multifaceted nature of academic success and can disadvantage well-rounded candidates who may not excel in a single testing format. Such a narrow focus could also inadvertently exclude promising students who might thrive in the university's environment, but whose strengths lie in areas not captured by standardized tests. Finally, an approach that favors applicants based on their ability to pay tuition fees, rather than their academic merit and suitability for the program, would be a significant ethical and potentially regulatory breach. This prioritizes financial gain over academic quality and fairness, contravening the fundamental purpose of a higher education institution. The professional decision-making process in such a situation should involve a clear understanding and consistent application of the university's admission policies. Admissions officers should be trained to identify and mitigate potential biases, and to conduct thorough, individualized reviews of all applications. Regular review of admission outcomes and processes is also crucial to ensure ongoing fairness and compliance with any applicable Mexican educational standards. Question 7. The performance metrics show a slight deviation in the average scores for a particular section of the American University of Acapulco entrance exam compared to historical data. The individual responsible for reviewing these metrics must determine the most appropriate next step. Option A. Seek advice from a former admissions officer from a different institution to gain insights into handling score variations. Option B. Rely on general statistical principles for performance analysis to identify potential causes for the deviation without specific reference to the exam's rules. Option C. Immediately adjust the scoring threshold for that section based on the observed deviation, assuming a need to normalize results. Option D. Consult the official American University of Acapulco entrance exam regulations and any associated interpretive guidelines for performance metrics to understand how such deviations are to be assessed and addressed. The correct answer is D. Consult the official American University of Acapulco entrance exam regulations and any associated interpretive guidelines for performance metrics to understand how such deviations are to be assessed and addressed. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to interpret performance data within the specific context of the American University of Acapulco's entrance examination regulations. The challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate course of action when faced with potentially misleading or incomplete information, ensuring adherence to the exam's established framework and ethical guidelines. Misinterpreting these metrics could lead to unfair assessment or a failure to uphold the integrity of the admissions process. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the American University of Acapulco's official entrance examination guidelines and any supplementary documentation that clarifies the interpretation of performance metrics. This approach is correct because it prioritizes adherence to the specific regulatory framework governing the exam. By consulting the official documentation, the individual ensures that their understanding and application of the performance metrics align with the university's established standards and procedures, thereby upholding the integrity and fairness of the entrance examination. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that relies solely on general best practices for performance metric analysis without consulting the American University of Acapulco's specific entrance exam regulations, is incorrect. This fails to acknowledge the unique jurisdictional requirements of the exam and risks misapplying standards that may not be relevant or permissible within the university's framework. An approach that involves seeking informal advice from colleagues or external sources without verifying against the official exam guidelines is also incorrect. While collaboration can be valuable, relying on unverified information can lead to the adoption of incorrect interpretations or procedures, compromising the exam's integrity and potentially violating its specific rules. An approach that assumes a standard interpretation of performance metrics without any specific reference to the American University of Acapulco's entrance exam documentation is fundamentally flawed. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the specific regulatory environment, which could result in decisions that are not compliant with the exam's established protocols. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such situations should adopt a systematic approach. First, identify the specific regulatory framework governing the task, in this case, the American University of Acapulco entrance exam regulations. Second, locate and thoroughly review all relevant official documentation pertaining to the interpretation of performance metrics. Third, apply the information from the official documentation to the specific scenario. If ambiguity remains, seek clarification through official channels designated by the university. This structured process ensures that decisions are grounded in the correct jurisdiction and ethical standards. Question 8. The audit findings indicate that a tenured professor in the engineering department, who also serves on the advisory board of a technology firm, has submitted a significant research grant proposal to the American University of Acapulco that directly benefits the technology firm's commercial interests. The professor has not formally disclosed their advisory board position to the university's Research Ethics Committee. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the university administration? Option A. Advise the professor to resign from their advisory board position before the grant proposal is reviewed to eliminate any potential conflict. Option B. Allow the grant proposal to proceed without further action, assuming the professor's academic judgment is not compromised by their external role. Option C. Immediately reject the professor's grant proposal due to the undisclosed conflict of interest and initiate a formal investigation into the professor's conduct. Option D. Require the professor to formally disclose their advisory board position and recuse themselves from the grant review process, while allowing the proposal to proceed under a special committee's oversight. The correct answer is C. Immediately reject the professor's grant proposal due to the undisclosed conflict of interest and initiate a formal investigation into the professor's conduct. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential conflict of interest involving a faculty member who also consults for a company seeking research grants from the American University of Acapulco. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity and ethical conduct with the faculty member's professional development and potential contributions to research. Careful judgment is required to ensure that institutional resources are not misused and that research funding decisions are made impartially, free from undue influence. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the university's conflict of interest policy, disclosure of the potential conflict by the faculty member, and an independent assessment of the situation by a designated university committee. This approach upholds the university's commitment to transparency and ethical governance by ensuring that all relevant parties are aware of the potential conflict and that an objective evaluation is conducted to determine if the conflict poses an unacceptable risk to the integrity of the research funding process. This aligns with principles of good governance and ethical research practices, which are paramount for maintaining the university's reputation and the trust of its stakeholders. An approach that overlooks the disclosure requirement and allows the faculty member to proceed without scrutiny would be ethically unsound. It fails to acknowledge the inherent risk of bias and could lead to preferential treatment of the consulting company, undermining the fairness of the grant allocation process. Similarly, an approach that immediately disqualifies the faculty member without a proper review process might be overly punitive and could stifle valuable research collaborations. It fails to consider the possibility that the conflict, if properly managed through disclosure and oversight, might not pose a significant threat. Finally, an approach that relies solely on the faculty member's self-assessment of the conflict, without independent university oversight, neglects the university's responsibility to ensure its policies are effectively implemented and that its reputation is protected. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established university policies and ethical guidelines. This involves actively seeking information about relevant regulations, engaging in open communication with all parties involved, and ensuring that decisions are made through a transparent and objective process. When faced with potential conflicts of interest, the focus should be on managing and mitigating risks rather than simply avoiding them, provided that such management can be achieved without compromising ethical standards. Question 9. Upon reviewing the application of a prospective student for the American University of Acapulco, the admissions committee notes that the student's entrance examination score is below the typical threshold for admission. However, the student's parents are influential alumni with a significant history of financial contributions to the university and have expressed strong expectations for their child's acceptance. The committee is aware that a rejection could potentially jeopardize future donations. Which of the following represents the most professionally responsible approach for the admissions committee? Option A. Inform the applicant's parents that while their child's entrance examination score is low, their contributions will be taken into consideration to potentially round up the score to meet admission requirements. Option B. Request a re-administration of the entrance examination for this specific applicant, suggesting that the original test conditions may have been suboptimal. Option C. Recommend immediate acceptance of the applicant to the admissions director, citing the family's significant alumni status and past donations as a primary factor in the decision. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the applicant's entire application file, including academic records, extracurricular activities, and letters of recommendation, to determine if they meet the holistic admission criteria, independent of parental influence or potential financial implications. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the applicant's entire application file, including academic records, extracurricular activities, and letters of recommendation, to determine if they meet the holistic admission criteria, independent of parental influence or potential financial implications. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The admissions committee must navigate this situation with careful judgment, ensuring that decisions are based on established university policies and ethical considerations, rather than external pressures or subjective interpretations. The core of the challenge lies in upholding the rigorous standards of the American University of Acapulco's entrance examination process, while treating each applicant fairly and consistently. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the applicant's entire application file, including their performance on the entrance examination, academic transcripts, letters of recommendation, and any supplementary materials. This approach prioritizes adherence to the American University of Acapulco's stated admission criteria and the integrity of the examination process. Specifically, it requires the committee to assess whether the applicant meets the established benchmarks for admission, considering all submitted evidence without undue influence. This aligns with the ethical obligation to maintain a fair and transparent admissions process, ensuring that all candidates are evaluated on the same objective standards, as implicitly required by any reputable academic institution's admission guidelines. An incorrect approach would be to grant special consideration or admission based solely on the applicant's family's influence or a perceived need to secure a donation. This bypasses the established merit-based evaluation system and undermines the credibility of the entrance examination. Such an action would violate the ethical principle of fairness and could be seen as a breach of the university's commitment to academic excellence. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the applicant's entrance examination performance without a valid, documented reason, such as a verified technical issue or a documented medical emergency that impacted their performance. This would be arbitrary and inconsistent with the principle of objective assessment. Finally, attempting to retroactively alter the applicant's examination score or application materials to fit a desired outcome would be a direct violation of academic integrity and potentially fraudulent. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes objectivity, adherence to policy, and ethical conduct. This involves 1. Understanding and strictly applying the university's admission policies and criteria. 2. Evaluating all applicants based on the same set of objective standards. 3. Documenting all decisions and the rationale behind them. 4. Seeking consensus among committee members to ensure a balanced perspective. 5. Escalating complex or ethically ambiguous situations to higher authorities or relevant committees for guidance. Question 10. System analysis indicates that an admissions officer at the American University of Acapulco is reviewing applications. They discover that one applicant is a close family friend whose children they have known since birth. The admissions officer has no direct supervisory role over the admissions committee's final decisions, but is a voting member. What is the most professionally responsible course of action for the admissions officer to take regarding this applicant's file? Option A. Make a decision based on the personal relationship, ensuring the applicant meets the minimum academic requirements to help a friend's child gain admission. Option B. Advocate for the applicant to other committee members, highlighting their positive personal qualities and potential contributions to the university. Option C. Evaluate the applicant's file as usual, assuming their qualifications will speak for themselves, and not mention the personal relationship to avoid any appearance of impropriety. Option D. Recuse themselves from any discussion or vote concerning the applicant's admission and disclose their relationship to the admissions committee chair. The correct answer is D. Recuse themselves from any discussion or vote concerning the applicant's admission and disclose their relationship to the admissions committee chair. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge involving the ethical and regulatory obligations of an admissions officer at the American University of Acapulco when faced with a potential conflict of interest. The challenge lies in balancing the university's commitment to fair and impartial admissions with personal relationships that could influence decision-making. Careful judgment is required to uphold the integrity of the admissions process and avoid any perception or reality of favoritism. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves recusing oneself from the decision-making process for the applicant with whom there is a personal relationship. This aligns with the principles of ethical conduct and best practices in admissions, which emphasize objectivity and the avoidance of conflicts of interest. Specifically, university policies and general ethical guidelines for educational institutions mandate that individuals in positions of influence must step aside when their personal connections could compromise their professional judgment. This ensures that all applicants are evaluated solely on their merits and qualifications, maintaining the fairness and credibility of the admissions committee. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that involves advocating for the applicant to other committee members, even if framed as providing context, is ethically problematic. This action blurs the line between providing objective information and exerting undue influence. It violates the principle of impartiality by attempting to sway the decision based on a personal connection rather than the applicant's qualifications as assessed by the entire committee. Another incorrect approach is to proceed with evaluating the applicant without disclosing the personal relationship. This is a direct violation of transparency and ethical disclosure requirements. Failing to disclose a conflict of interest undermines the trust placed in the admissions officer and the integrity of the entire admissions process. It creates a situation where the applicant might receive preferential treatment, intentionally or unintentionally, without the knowledge or consent of other committee members. Finally, an approach that involves making a decision based on the personal relationship, even if the applicant is qualified, is fundamentally flawed. While the applicant may meet the criteria, the decision-making process itself is compromised. This approach prioritizes personal connection over objective evaluation, leading to unfairness for other applicants and damaging the university's reputation for merit-based admissions. Professional reasoning. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes transparency, objectivity, and adherence to institutional policies and ethical codes. When a potential conflict of interest arises, the immediate step should be to identify and disclose it. Following disclosure, recusal from any decision-making or evaluative role concerning the applicant in question is the standard and ethically sound practice. This ensures that the process remains fair, impartial, and defensible, upholding the reputation and integrity of the institution. Question 11. The monitoring system demonstrates a pattern of keystroke activity during the American University of Acapulco entrance exam that deviates significantly from the candidate's typical profile, raising concerns about potential external assistance. Option A. Initiate a formal review by the admissions committee, gathering all relevant system logs and providing the candidate an opportunity to respond to any findings before a final decision is made. Option B. Immediately disqualify the candidate from the entrance exam based on the detected anomaly. Option C. Contact the candidate directly via email to inquire about their keystroke patterns during the exam. Option D. Ignore the monitoring system's alert and proceed with grading the exam as usual. The correct answer is A. Initiate a formal review by the admissions committee, gathering all relevant system logs, and providing the candidate an opportunity to respond to any findings before a final decision is made. Explanation. The scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and the potential for unintended consequences of a monitoring system. The university entrance exam at the American University of Acapulco is designed to assess a candidate's aptitude and preparedness. The monitoring system's demonstration of unusual activity requires careful judgment to ensure fairness to all applicants while upholding the integrity of the admissions process. The challenge lies in distinguishing between genuine technical anomalies, external interference, or potential academic misconduct, and acting appropriately without prejudicing a candidate unfairly. The correct approach involves a multifaceted investigation that prioritizes due process and evidence-based decision-making, aligning with the principles of fairness and academic integrity expected by the American University of Acapulco's admissions guidelines. This approach requires gathering all available data, including the nature of the unusual activity, the candidate's response, if any, and any corroborating evidence. It necessitates a review by an impartial committee, as per university policy, to assess the situation objectively. This ensures that any decision is based on a thorough understanding of the facts and adherence to established procedures, preventing arbitrary judgments and safeguarding the reputation of the examination. An incorrect approach of immediately disqualifying the candidate based solely on the monitoring system's alert fails to uphold the principle of due process, assumes guilt without investigation, and violates the ethical obligation to provide a fair opportunity for all applicants. This approach bypasses the established review procedures and could lead to a wrongful exclusion, damaging the university's reputation for fairness. Another incorrect approach of ignoring the alert and proceeding without any further inquiry is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to uphold the integrity of the admissions process. It risks allowing potential academic misconduct to go unchecked, undermining the credibility of the entrance exam and the qualifications of admitted students. A third incorrect approach of contacting the candidate directly to question them about the alert without a formal investigation process is premature and potentially coercive. It could put the candidate on the defensive, compromise the integrity of any subsequent formal investigation, and may not yield accurate information. Professional decision-making in such situations should follow a structured process. First, identify and document the anomaly. Second, initiate a formal, impartial review process as outlined by university policy. Third, gather all relevant evidence. Fourth, allow the candidate an opportunity to respond to any findings. And finally, make a decision based on the totality of the evidence and established university regulations. Question 12. Examination of the data shows an applicant with a strong history of leadership in extracurricular activities and a compelling personal essay, but whose entrance examination scores are slightly below the university's typical admitted student profile, with a notable dip in one specific subject area. The admissions committee is deliberating whether to offer admission based on their perceived potential and extracurricular contributions. Option A. Offer admission, focusing on the applicant's extracurricular achievements and essay as indicators of their overall character and potential, and assuming they will naturally adapt to the academic rigor. Option B. Offer admission, but require the applicant to complete a remedial course in the subject area where their entrance exam score was low before commencing their degree program. Option C. Decline admission, citing the entrance exam scores as not meeting the minimum academic threshold for successful matriculation. Option D. Offer admission, prioritizing the applicant's demonstrated leadership and essay, while acknowledging the entrance exam scores as a potential area for academic support during their first year. The correct answer is D. Offer admission, prioritizing the applicant's demonstrated leadership and essay, while acknowledging the entrance exam scores as a potential area for academic support during their first year. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in academic admissions where an applicant's profile, while strong in some areas, raises questions about their overall preparedness for the rigor of university-level study. The challenge lies in balancing the university's mandate to admit qualified students with the ethical responsibility to ensure admitted students have a reasonable chance of success, thereby protecting both the student and the institution's academic standards. The admissions committee must navigate potential biases and subjective interpretations of potential while adhering to established university policies. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a holistic review that prioritizes documented academic performance and standardized test scores as primary indicators of preparedness, while also considering supplementary evidence of potential. This aligns with the American University of Acapulco's stated admission guidelines, which likely emphasize a combination of academic merit and demonstrated aptitude. Specifically, focusing on the applicant's consistent academic record and strong performance on the entrance exam, as these are the most objective and directly relevant measures of their readiness for the academic demands of the university. This approach is ethically sound as it relies on established, quantifiable criteria and avoids speculative judgments. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that solely focuses on the applicant's extracurricular achievements and leadership roles, while overlooking their academic performance and entrance exam scores, is flawed. This fails to adhere to the university's likely emphasis on academic preparedness as the foundational requirement for admission. It risks admitting students who may not possess the necessary academic foundation to succeed, potentially leading to academic difficulties and a negative experience for the student. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the applicant outright based on a single perceived weakness, such as a slightly lower score in one specific section of the entrance exam, without considering the totality of their application. This is overly rigid and fails to acknowledge the possibility of applicant growth or the validity of strong performance in other key areas. It may also be seen as an arbitrary decision, lacking the thoroughness expected in an admissions process. An approach that relies heavily on anecdotal evidence or personal recommendations without correlating them to academic performance or exam results is also problematic. While recommendations can offer insight, they are inherently subjective. Without a strong link to objective academic indicators, such an approach can lead to biased decisions and may not accurately reflect the applicant's true academic potential. Professional reasoning. Professionals in admissions should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with understanding the university's admission criteria and ethical obligations. This involves 1. Identifying the core requirements for admission academic performance, entrance exam scores. 2. Evaluating the applicant's profile against these core requirements, giving due weight to objective data. 3. Considering supplementary information, extracurriculars, recommendations, as secondary evidence that can contextualize or support the primary indicators, but not override them without strong justification. 4. Ensuring decisions are consistent, fair, and defensible based on established policies and ethical principles, avoiding personal biases or subjective interpretations that lack empirical support. Question 13. Assessment of an applicant's understanding of the American University of Acapulco's core values and their personal alignment with the institution's mission, as evidenced by their response to an essay prompt. Option A. Articulate a personal connection to the university's mission and values, supported by specific examples of how these resonate with the applicant's academic aspirations and future contributions. Option B. List the university's academic programs and their strengths, without detailing how they align with personal goals. Option C. Quote the university's motto and briefly explain its literal meaning. Option D. Describe general academic achievements and extracurricular successes, without specific reference to the American University of Acapulco. The correct answer is A. Articulate a personal connection to the university's mission and values, supported by specific examples of how these resonate with the applicant's academic aspirations and future contributions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the American University of Acapulco's foundational principles and their practical application in an academic context, without resorting to rote memorization or superficial responses. The challenge lies in discerning genuine comprehension from mere recall, necessitating an approach that probes critical thinking and alignment with the university's ethos. The correct approach involves articulating a personal connection to the university's mission and values, supported by specific examples of how these resonate with the applicant's academic aspirations and future contribution. This demonstrates a thoughtful engagement with the institution's identity and a clear vision for their role within it. This aligns with the implicit expectation of entrance exams to assess not just academic preparedness, but also a candidate's suitability and potential to thrive within the university community. It reflects a commitment to understanding and embodying the institution's guiding principles, which is a cornerstone of academic integrity and community building. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on listing the university's academic programs without explaining personal relevance fails to demonstrate genuine interest or understanding of the university's unique identity. This approach is superficial and does not showcase the applicant's alignment with the university's broader mission. Another incorrect approach, which emphasizes generic achievements without linking them to the specific opportunities or values of the American University of Acapulco, misses the opportunity to personalize the application and highlight a specific fit. This approach suggests a lack of research or a failure to tailor the application to the institution. Finally, an approach that relies on quoting the university's motto without elaborating on its personal meaning or practical application demonstrates a superficial understanding and a lack of genuine engagement with the university's core tenets. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the underlying purpose of the assessment to gauge suitability and alignment, not just knowledge. This involves active listening or careful reading, identifying the core values or objectives being assessed, and then formulating a response that directly addresses these, providing specific, personalized examples. The decision-making process should prioritize authenticity, relevance, and a demonstration of thoughtful consideration of the institution's unique context. Question 14. Which approach would be most appropriate for the American University of Acapulco Admissions Committee when an applicant, after submitting their application for the entrance exam, expresses significant anxiety about their chances of acceptance and requests specific assurances regarding their admission based on their perceived potential, rather than solely on the submitted application materials? Option A suggests that the applicant focus on improving their application materials before the deadline, even though the deadline has already passed, to increase their chances of acceptance. Option B, conduct a comprehensive and objective review of the applicant's entire submitted application package against the established admissions criteria, providing a standardized response regarding the evaluation process and the factors considered. Option C, offer the applicant a preliminary assessment of their potential based on their expressed concerns, promising to give their application special consideration during the review process. Option D, advise the applicant that their request for assurances cannot be accommodated and that they must await the standard notification of the admissions decision without further discussion. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive and objective review of the applicant's entire submitted application package against the established admissions criteria, providing a standardized response regarding the evaluation process and the factors considered. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for a specific academic outcome and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair evaluation. The admissions committee must navigate this delicate situation by upholding the university's established policies and ethical standards, while also demonstrating fairness and transparency to prospective students. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the need to maintain the rigor of the admissions process with the desire to be supportive of applicants. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the applicant's entire application package, considering all submitted materials against the established admissions criteria. This approach is ethically sound and aligns with best practices in university admissions because it prioritizes fairness, consistency, and adherence to established policies. The American University of Acapulco entrance exam regulations, while not explicitly detailed here, would implicitly require such a process to ensure equitable treatment of all applicants and to maintain the academic standards of the institution. This method avoids any appearance of impropriety or favoritism, which is crucial for the credibility of the admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to grant special consideration or alter the evaluation process based solely on the applicant's expressed desire for a particular outcome or their perceived potential. This would violate the principle of equal treatment and could lead to accusations of bias or unfairness. Furthermore, it would undermine the established admissions criteria and could set a precedent for future applicants to expect similar deviations from policy. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the applicant's concerns entirely without a proper review, which would be unprofessional and could lead to a perception of the university being unresponsive or dismissive of applicant inquiries, potentially damaging its reputation. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the university's mission, values, and specific admissions policies. This framework should include a commitment to objective evaluation, a systematic review process, and a transparent communication strategy with applicants. When faced with unusual requests or circumstances, professionals should consult relevant policies and, if necessary, seek guidance from supervisors or relevant committees to ensure decisions are consistent, fair, and ethically defensible. Question 15. Implementation of a fair and transparent admissions process for the American University of Acapulco entrance exam requires the admissions committee to evaluate applicants based on their academic qualifications and potential to succeed in the program. An applicant, who is the nephew of a tenured faculty member, submits their application along with a letter from their uncle highlighting the applicant's strong academic background and expressing confidence in their ability to excel at the university. The admissions committee is aware of the faculty member's reputation and influence within the university. Considering the regulatory framework of the American University of Acapulco entrance exam, which approach best upholds the principles of academic integrity and equitable evaluation. Option A. Conduct a thorough and objective review of the applicant's entire academic record and supplementary materials, assessing their qualifications against the established admission criteria, while ensuring the faculty member's letter is considered as one piece of information among many, without allowing it to unduly influence the decision. Option B. Immediately reject the applicant's request for consideration of the faculty member's letter, as such connections are irrelevant to the objective evaluation of academic merit. Option C. Allow the faculty member to directly participate in the admissions committee's deliberations to advocate for their nephew's admission, ensuring their perspective is given significant weight in the final decision. Option D. Grant the applicant preferential consideration for admission due to their familial relationship with a respected faculty member, assuming their uncle's endorsement guarantees their suitability for the university. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough and objective review of the applicant's entire academic record and supplementary materials, assessing their qualifications against the established admission criteria, while ensuring the faculty member's letter is considered as one piece of information among many, without allowing it to unduly influence the decision. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The admissions committee must navigate this delicate situation by upholding the established evaluation criteria while also considering the unique circumstances presented by the applicant. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the decision is both fair to the applicant and consistent with the university's standards. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the applicant's entire academic record, including any supplementary materials provided, and a careful consideration of the university's stated admissions policies. This approach is justified by the regulatory framework of the American University of Acapulco entrance exam, which mandates a holistic evaluation process that prioritizes academic merit and adherence to established admission criteria. The university's guidelines likely emphasize fairness, transparency, and the prevention of undue influence or bias in the admissions process. By focusing on the applicant's demonstrated academic capabilities and alignment with the program's requirements, this approach upholds the integrity of the entrance exam and ensures that admitted students are well prepared for the academic rigor of the university. An incorrect approach would be to grant preferential treatment based solely on the applicant's personal connection to a faculty member, without a comprehensive review of their qualifications. This fails to adhere to the principle of merit-based admissions, potentially undermining the fairness of the selection process and violating the spirit of the entrance exam regulations, which are designed to ensure equal opportunity for all applicants. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the applicant's request for consideration of their extenuating circumstances without any form of review. demonstrates a lack of empathy and a failure to consider the full context of the applicant's situation, which may be a factor in a holistic evaluation process, provided it does not compromise the core academic standards. Such an approach risks appearing rigid and unsupportive, potentially leading to a perception of unfairness. A further incorrect approach would be to allow the faculty member to directly influence the admissions decision, beyond providing objective information about the applicant's academic potential. This introduces a conflict of interest and compromises the impartiality of the admissions committee, violating ethical guidelines that demand objective decision-making in academic admissions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured review process that prioritizes objective assessment against established criteria. When extenuating circumstances or personal connections are introduced, the process should include mechanisms for evaluating the relevance and impact of such factors without compromising the integrity of the evaluation. This typically involves seeking clarification, gathering all relevant information, and making a decision based on a consensus of the admissions committee, guided by the university's policies and ethical principles. Question 16. Market research demonstrates that some prospective students applying to the American University of Acapulco for the upcoming academic year have encountered online discussions suggesting the existence of insider knowledge or specific leaked topics for the entrance examination. As an applicant, what is the most appropriate and ethically sound course of action to take in response to this information? Option A. Attempt to locate and utilize any purported insider knowledge or leaked topics to gain an advantage in preparing for the examination. Option B. Share the information about potential insider knowledge with other prospective applicants to ensure everyone is aware of the situation. Option C. Ignore the online discussions entirely and proceed with preparation based solely on general knowledge without seeking any specific guidance from the university. Option D. Proactively contact the American University of Acapulco's admissions office or the relevant academic department to inquire about official study guides, recommended preparation materials, and the scope of the entrance examination. The correct answer is D. Proactively contact the American University of Acapulco's admissions office or the relevant academic department to inquire about official study guides, recommended preparation materials, and the scope of the entrance examination. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the foundational principles of academic integrity and ethical conduct expected within a university setting, specifically the American University of Acapulco. The challenge lies in discerning between acceptable and unacceptable methods of preparing for an entrance examination, particularly when faced with information that might be perceived as an unfair advantage. Careful judgment is required to uphold the university's standards and ensure a fair assessment for all candidates. The correct approach involves proactively seeking clarification from the university regarding the nature of the examination and any permissible preparatory materials. This demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct and a desire to prepare appropriately within the established guidelines. Specifically, contacting the admissions office or the relevant academic department to inquire about official study guides, recommended resources, or any specific topics that will be covered is the most professional and ethically sound action. This aligns with the American University of Acapulco's likely commitment to academic honesty and fair evaluation, ensuring that all applicants are assessed on their own merit and preparation, not on access to potentially privileged or unauthorized information. An incorrect approach would be to assume that the information about insider knowledge is legitimate and to attempt to obtain or utilize it. This would constitute academic dishonesty and a violation of the university's ethical standards. Relying on such information, even if it were true, would undermine the integrity of the entrance examination process and could lead to severe consequences, including disqualification from admission. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the information entirely without seeking any clarification. While this avoids actively engaging in unethical behavior, it misses an opportunity to ensure proper preparation and could lead to an applicant being underprepared if the information was misleading or if there were legitimate, authorized study materials available that they were unaware of. This passive approach does not actively uphold the principles of academic integrity. A third incorrect approach would be to share the information about insider knowledge with other prospective applicants. This would not only be unethical, but could also be construed as facilitating academic dishonesty, potentially jeopardizing the admission prospects of multiple individuals and damaging the reputation of the university. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves prioritizing transparency, ethical conduct, and adherence to institutional guidelines. When faced with ambiguity or potentially compromising information, the first step should always be to seek official clarification from the relevant authority. This ensures that decisions are made based on accurate information and in alignment with established rules and ethical principles. Question 17. During the evaluation of prospective student applications for the upcoming academic year, the admissions committee at the American University of Acapulco is facing pressure to meet ambitious enrollment targets. Several committee members have noted that some applicants, while possessing strong academic records, come from families with limited financial means, while others with slightly lower academic profiles are from affluent backgrounds or have familial connections to significant university donors. The committee must decide how to weigh these factors in their final admissions decisions. Option A. Prioritize applicants based on a comprehensive review of their academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, and personal statements, ensuring that financial background or donor affiliations do not unduly influence the assessment of their suitability for the university. Option B. Implement a quota system that allocates a certain percentage of admissions slots to students from affluent backgrounds and another percentage to those with lower financial means, irrespective of their individual qualifications. Option C. Focus primarily on meeting the enrollment targets by admitting a diverse range of students, with less emphasis on strict academic merit if it means falling short of the desired student numbers. Option D. Give preferential consideration to applicants whose families have demonstrated significant financial capacity or have strong ties to university donors, as this can contribute to the university's financial stability and future development. The correct answer is A. Prioritize applicants based on a comprehensive review of their academic achievements, extracurricular involvement, and personal statements, ensuring that financial background or donor affiliations do not unduly influence the assessment of their suitability for the university. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate financial needs and the long-term integrity of its admissions process. The admissions committee must balance the pressure to meet enrollment targets with the ethical obligation to select candidates based on merit and suitability, not solely on their ability to contribute financially. This requires careful judgment to uphold the university's reputation and academic standards. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective assessment of each applicant's academic qualifications, extracurricular achievements, and personal essays, independent of any potential financial contributions or affiliations. This aligns with the ethical principles of fairness and meritocracy, ensuring that admission decisions are based on a holistic evaluation of a candidate's potential to succeed at the American University of Acapulco and contribute to its academic community. Adherence to the university's stated admissions criteria and policies, which should prioritize academic merit, is paramount. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize applicants who have demonstrated significant financial capacity or whose families have strong ties to the university, even if their academic profiles are weaker than other candidates. This would violate the principle of equal opportunity and could lead to the admission of less qualified students, potentially lowering academic standards and damaging the university's reputation. It also raises ethical concerns about favoritism and the perception of a pay-to-play admission system, which erodes trust among applicants, faculty, and the wider community. Another incorrect approach would be to solely focus on meeting enrollment targets without a rigorous review of academic credentials. This could result in admitting students who are not adequately prepared for the university's academic rigor, leading to higher dropout rates and a diminished educational experience for all. It disregards the fundamental purpose of an admissions process, which is to identify individuals who will thrive in the university's environment and contribute positively to its academic mission. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a commitment to transparency, fairness, and adherence to established policies. Admissions committees should operate under clear guidelines that emphasize objective evaluation criteria. When faced with conflicting pressures, professionals must refer to the university's mission statement, admissions policies, and any relevant ethical codes of conduct. If ambiguity exists or if external pressures seem to compromise these principles, seeking guidance from senior leadership or an ethics committee is a crucial step. The ultimate goal is to make decisions that are defensible, ethical, and in the best long-term interest of the institution. Question 18. Stakeholder feedback indicates a growing concern among faculty regarding the consistent submission of late assignments by a particular student, who attributes these delays to personal circumstances. The university's academic regulations clearly outline deadlines and a structured process for requesting extensions, which the student has not fully utilized. The faculty are seeking guidance on how to address this recurring issue while upholding academic standards and supporting student success. Option A. Inform the student that late submissions are unacceptable and that no further extensions will be granted, regardless of the circumstances. Option B. Initiate a formal review of the student's academic record and the faculty's documentation of late submissions, assessing the situation against the American University of Acapulco's established policies on academic integrity and extensions, and then communicate a decision based on this review. Option C. Advise the faculty to simply deduct points for late submissions as per the syllabus, without further intervention or review of the student's situation. Option D. Immediately grant the student a blanket extension for all future assignments, with a note to the student to try and meet deadlines going forward. The correct answer is B. Initiate a formal review of the student's academic record and the faculty's documentation of late submissions, assessing the situation against the American University of Acapulco's established policies on academic integrity and extensions, and then communicate a decision based on this review. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived academic needs and the university's established policies designed to ensure academic integrity and fair assessment. The need for careful judgment arises from balancing the university's commitment to providing educational opportunities with its responsibility to uphold the value and credibility of its degrees. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial review of the student's request against the established academic regulations and policies of the American University of Acapulco. This approach is right because it adheres to the principles of fairness, consistency, and due process, which are fundamental to any educational institution's governance. Specifically, it aligns with the university's regulatory framework by ensuring that any exceptions or accommodations are granted only when demonstrably justified and in accordance with predefined criteria, thereby maintaining the integrity of the academic program and preventing undue advantage. This upholds the ethical obligation to treat all students equitably. An incorrect approach that involves immediately granting the student's request without proper verification or adherence to policy is professionally unacceptable. This failure bypasses the established regulatory framework, potentially setting a precedent for future requests that could undermine academic standards. It also violates the ethical principle of fairness by potentially offering preferential treatment without a valid, documented reason. Another incorrect approach, which is to dismiss the student's request outright without any form of review or consideration of extenuating circumstances, is also professionally flawed. While it upholds policy rigidity, it fails to acknowledge the university's ethical responsibility to support students facing genuine difficulties and to explore reasonable accommodations within the bounds of academic integrity. This approach can lead to student dissatisfaction and a perception of inflexibility, potentially harming the university's reputation. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the specific university policies and regulations governing academic accommodations and appeals. 2. Gathering all relevant information and documentation pertaining to the student's request. 3. Conducting an objective assessment of the request against the established criteria. 4. Communicating the decision clearly and transparently to the student, explaining the rationale based on university policy. 5. If necessary, escalating the decision to the appropriate academic committee or authority for further review. Question 19. Performance analysis shows a consistent decline in student engagement metrics across several core undergraduate courses at the American University of Acapulco over the past 2 academic years. This trend is particularly noticeable in student participation in online discussion forums and attendance at optional review sessions. The analysis does not, however, provide specific reasons for this decline. Considering the university's commitment to fostering a supportive learning environment and ensuring academic integrity, what is the most appropriate initial response from the Academic Affairs Committee? Option A. Publish a university-wide announcement highlighting the declining engagement and warning students about the potential academic consequences if trends continue. Option B. Initiate a comprehensive review involving faculty teaching these courses, student representatives, and instructional design specialists to identify potential contributing factors and explore targeted support strategies. Option C. Immediately revise course syllabi to mandate higher participation in online forums and increase the weighting of review session attendance in final grades. Option D. Delegate the responsibility for addressing the engagement decline to individual course instructors without providing additional resources or guidance. Correct answer is C. Immediately revise course syllabi to mandate higher participation in online forums and increase the weighting of review session attendance in final grades. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in academic institutions where performance metrics, while useful, can be misinterpreted or misused if not contextualized. The American University of Acapulco, like any educational body, operates under a framework that prioritizes student welfare, academic integrity, and fair assessment. The challenge lies in balancing the drive for institutional improvement, as indicated by performance analysis, with the ethical obligation to ensure that such analysis does not lead to punitive or unfair actions against students or faculty without due process or a holistic understanding of contributing factors. The correct approach involves a nuanced interpretation of performance data, recognizing that a single metric may not capture the full picture. It emphasizes a collaborative and investigative process, seeking to understand the root causes of any observed trends before implementing interventions. This aligns with the principles of good governance and ethical management within an educational institution, which would typically advocate for data-informed decision-making that is also fair, transparent, and student-centered. The focus should be on improvement and support, rather than immediate judgment or blame. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement drastic measures based solely on a superficial reading of the performance analysis. This could manifest as disproportionate disciplinary actions against faculty or students, or the imposition of rigid, unsupportive policies that fail to address underlying issues. Such actions would likely violate principles of fairness and due process, potentially leading to appeals, damage to the institution's reputation, and a demotivated academic community. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the performance analysis altogether, as this would represent a failure to engage with data that could inform necessary improvements and potentially address systemic problems. Professionals in an academic setting should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the data, considering its limitations and potential biases. This should be followed by consultation with relevant stakeholders, including faculty, students, and administrative bodies. The next step involves identifying potential causes for the observed performance, which may require further investigation or data collection. Finally, any proposed interventions or actions should be evidence-based, proportionate, ethically sound, and aligned with the institution's mission and values. Question 20. Quality control measures reveal a pattern of unusual similarities between the answers of two applicants to the American University of Acapulco's entrance exam, suggesting a potential breach of academic integrity. The admissions committee must decide how to proceed. Option A. Ignore the findings to avoid potential negative publicity or to ensure enrollment targets are met, assuming the similarities are minor or coincidental. Option B. Contact the university's legal counsel to discuss potential legal ramifications before any internal investigation begins. Option C. Immediately disqualify both applicants to maintain the perceived fairness of the exam, regardless of the extent of the similarities or the possibility of coincidence. Option D. Initiate a formal investigation according to the university's established academic integrity policy, gathering all evidence and applying the defined consequences for proven misconduct. The correct answer is D. Initiate a formal investigation according to the university's established academic integrity policy, gathering all evidence and applying the defined consequences for proven misconduct. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential conflict between academic integrity and the need to maintain positive relationships with key stakeholders, specifically prospective students and their families. The university's reputation and enrollment numbers are directly impacted by the admissions process. A hasty or overly lenient response to a detected irregularity could undermine the credibility of the entrance exam, and by extension, the university itself. Conversely, an overly rigid or punitive approach without proper investigation could alienate potential students and negatively affect future recruitment. Careful judgment is required to balance fairness, adherence to established procedures, and the long-term interests of the American University of Acapulco. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation into the detected irregularity, adhering strictly to the American University of Acapulco's established admissions policies and the specific guidelines governing the entrance exam. This process should involve gathering all relevant evidence, interviewing involved parties if necessary, and applying the defined consequences for academic misconduct as outlined in the university's student handbook or admissions regulations. This upholds academic integrity, ensures fairness to all applicants, and maintains the validity of the admissions process, aligning with the ethical principles of transparency and accountability expected of educational institutions. An approach that immediately disqualifies the applicant without a proper investigation fails to uphold due process and could lead to an incorrect judgment. This violates the principle of fairness and may contravene internal university policies regarding disciplinary procedures. Another incorrect approach, which is to overlook the irregularity to avoid potential negative publicity or to maintain enrollment targets, directly compromises academic integrity and sets a dangerous precedent. This action undermines the value of the entrance examination and signals a lack of commitment to fair and equitable admissions, potentially leading to a decline in the quality of admitted students and a damaged institutional reputation in the long run. A third incorrect approach, which is to consult external legal counsel before initiating an internal investigation, is premature and inefficient. While legal advice might be necessary later, the initial step should always be to follow established internal procedures for handling academic irregularities. Delaying the internal process by immediately seeking external legal input can create unnecessary bureaucracy and slow down a fair resolution. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Identifying the irregularity and its potential impact. 2. Consulting the relevant university policies and exam guidelines. 3. Initiating a fair and impartial investigation according to established procedures. 4. Gathering evidence and considering all perspectives. 5. Applying consequences consistently and transparently based on the findings and policies. 6. Documenting the entire process.